to the Tuesday Night Touchdown Podcast with your hosts, Reese Downing and Jacob Workman.
What's going on, guys? It is TNT Tuesday Night Touchdown Podcast, NFL edition, Super Bowl week. We are finally here. With me, as always, is fine citizen and co-host, Mr. Jacob Workman. Jake, how's it going, man?
It's pretty good. We've got one pick left of this first inaugural season of our podcast.
Yeah, it's crazy that we are where we are. It feels like it kind of flew by there. Yeah, so with us this week, we've got two of the three Goon Squad members here. Scott, unfortunately, wasn't able to join us, but we do have Mr. John Taxis and the Carter joining us here for our final week of picks. Gentlemen, thanks for joining.
Thank you.
Yep, definitely.
All right, let's jump right into it here. We've got some league news I want to cover. We can pause here if we've got some commentary to go through this, but we did have a lot of stuff in movement in terms of coaching for the second week in a row, and it seems like most of these teams are relatively solidified. We have a couple final positions that are still available, but by all accounts, all of the head coaching positions are gone. So let's run through those real quick. The Seattle Seahawks have hired Ravens defensive coordinator Mike Macdonald as their new head coach. They've also hired former Bills DC Leslie Frazier as the team's assistant head coach. The Washington Commanders have hired Cowboys defensive coordinator Dan Quinn as their next head coach. DQ is bringing with him Joe Witt Jr. He was the former DB's coach. He is now the defensive coordinator in Washington. They are also bringing with him Arizona Cardinals former head coach Cliff Kingsbury as their new offensive coordinator. So that means that Eric Bieniemy is once again out of a job. Before we move any further, I want to pause here and kind of have a discussion around this. This continues to happen to Eric Bieniemy basically throughout his career. A little bit of a question mark when he did that lateral move to leave from Kansas City to Washington. I think more than likely the reason for that is he thought that there was a potential opportunity for him to take over for Ron Rivera, but that did not happen. So once again, Bieniemy is out of a job, and I just want to kind of open the floor and get your guys' thoughts on why you think that is, because by all accounts, he's been a damn good offensive coordinator. You hear it from the players that play for him all the time that they love him as a coach, but he just cannot seem to find a head coaching position. So interested to hear what the group's thoughts are on what the issue is there and where we think he might end up landing. Jake, I'll go to you first.
Yeah, I'm honestly not sure. I mean, I know that there were the rumors when he was in Kansas City about him being a bad interviewer, but I don't. The interview shouldn't matter, to be honest. I mean, his results have been proven on the field. I honestly don't know. I think it's crazy, and I'm gonna take a wild guess. He probably ends up back in KC. Like they struggled a little bit on offense this year. Why not bring him back where he's actually used appropriately? I think it'd be a great pairing again. Put him back with Reed and Nagy, and just go back to the dynasty.
Texas, what do you think?
Well, I mean, there's questions whether it was him or Reed when it was Kansas City. So he went to try to make his own, but he lined himself with a team and a head coach that was kind of a lame duck season. You know, the new ownership and new head coach probably they want their own guys. So, I mean, I don't blame Dan Quinn for wanting to bring in who he wants, and maybe Bieniemy wasn't the choice. So he's just out again. It's just the wrong time to go switch to a team who's got a lame duck head coach.
Carter, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, it's just bad timing all around. I think it looked like Reed and Mahomes kind of carried him, so he stepped away from there to kind of make his own name, and then new ownership in Washington, just kind of bad timing. And, of course, Dan Quinn's going to want his guys. So, and where he goes from here, it's hard to tell. And probably going back to Kansas City is not a bad guess, though.
I find it odd, though, that they brought in Cliff Kingsbury. Like, is this only strictly a play to get Caleb Williams? Like, I don't know. I think that's a terrible hire.
That connection's so weird, too. He was there 1 year as an analyst with Caleb Williams. Is that the connection with Kingsbury?
Yeah. Caleb does really like him, though. He has said that, but still.
Yeah, it'll be interesting. There's a couple teams that are left, I think, that still have offensive coordinator positions that are available, but it continues to keep happening to be enemy. So we'll keep an eye on that as we go forward. Moving on to some additional news here. Texans OC Bobby Slowick and the QB coach Gerard Johnson are both set to return to Houston after taking interviews for other positions. The Green Bay Packers have hired Boston College head coach Jeff Hafley as their next defensive coordinator. The Tennessee Titans have hired Ravens DB coach Denard Wilson as their next defensive coordinator. They've also hired Nick Holes as their OC and Bill Callahan as their offensive line coach. The Los Angeles Rams are promoting Chris Shula, grandson of Miami Dolphin legendary coach Don Shula, as their next DC. He did have his name thrown in the ring to come to Miami to be their DC, but it looks like the Rams scooped him up before that was happening. The Baltimore Ravens have promoted inside linebacker coach Zach Orr to the defensive coordinator position. New England Patriots are hiring ex-Browns OC Alex Van Pelt as their new offensive coordinator. The Miami Dolphins are hiring Ravens assistant head coach Anthony Weaver as their new DC. They've also hired former Packers DC Joe Barry as a defensive assistant. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers are hiring Liam Cohen as their new offensive coordinator. We'll see how that impacts Baker Mayfield and whether or not he sticks around Tampa. The Las Vegas Raiders, who were rumored to be closing in on hiring Cliff Kingsbury as their new OC before contract talks broke down, are now hiring former Bears OC Luke Getsy for the same position. New York Giants are hiring former Titans DC Shane Bowen for their next defensive coordinator. The Cleveland Browns are hiring Ken Dorsey as their next offensive coordinator. And finally, the Dallas Cowboys search for their DC continues. They are looking at both former Commanders head coach Ron Rivera as well as former Vikings head coach and Cowboys defensive coordinator Mike Zimmer, among others. Throwing this to you, Taxis, what are your thoughts on looking at Rivera and Zimmer, and between him and some of these other guys out there, Mike Vrabel probably being the name that I'm most interested in? What are your thoughts on pulling one of these guys? Who would you like to see in the position? Concerns, things like that?
So I think with Rivera, I think it'd be more of the same as what we had with Quinn. I don't think it's too terribly different of a defense. I really like Zimmer. I think that he's got enough. Like his defenses in Minnesota were actually very strong. And I read an article that said that the EPA per play is second best among the Shanahan coaching tree, Shanahan and McVay. So when he was in Minnesota, so that's where we're having problems getting past is Shanahan. So if he can bring, he's going to be more of a more base defense, less nickel and dime. So, stopping the run, bigger linebackers. He did wonders with Anthony Barr. Back when he was a Cowboy defensive backs coach, he had Terrence Newman, perennial Pro Bowler. And then, even Harrison Smith as a safety when he was in Minnesota. They all rave about, he was a tough coach, but they learned a lot from him, X's and O's wise. And it's not just learning their position, it's learning how their position affects everybody else on the field. And I know that coaches are supposed to do that, but I don't know how much they actually do that, but that's what Harrison Smith had to say about him. But no, I really think Zimmer, with his history with the Joneses, he was there from 96 or 98 to 06 or something like that.
Yeah, he was there for a while.
He lasted Switzer, Chan Gailey, who was the other one? Anyways, and then Bill Parcells. He was Bill Parcells' DC as well. So he outlasted 4 Cowboys head coaches as part of that coaching tree. So no, I really like Zimmer.
Yeah, if we're looking at the difference between Rivera and Zimmer, Zimmer is my choice. I really do hope that they give Mike Vrabel a chance. And frankly, from an in-house standpoint, I would not be upset if we promoted Al Harris to the DC position. There's a lot of players on that team that seem to have their backing behind him. Micah Parsons has been pretty vocal recently about how he's been a little frustrated with where he's being placed on the defensive front. So if they do go with a coach like a Zimmer or a Vrabel where they adjust the base defense that we're playing, he's probably going to play more linebacker, which is where I think he really wants to live, because it's going to give him an opportunity to have more impact plays on the field. So we'll see what happens there. Carter, Workman, you guys have any thoughts on the DC stuff before we move on?
Carter, you have anything?
Mike Zimmer, haven't heard that name for a while, but always liked him at Minnesota. Had good, tough defenses. I think he was in Cincinnati before that, if I remember correctly. And then I didn't realize he had all that history with Dallas, so that makes a lot of sense to me. I think Vrabel will probably sit out a year and see what happens next year, head coaching wise. And Al Harris is probably interesting if he doesn't go with Dan Quinn to Washington.
Yeah, Schefter said that it's basically a lock that it's either going to be Zimmer or Rivera, that there's really no other candidates right now.
Yeah,
There's
so
Aiden
we'll see.
who's the defensive line coach right now. He was another one that's in the mix from the Cowboys. He's currently on staff, so he was the other one. There were three I thought were in the mix.
All right. Well, we'll keep eyes on that. That is all we've got as far as league news. So next thing we're going to move into here is discuss some of our favorite betting props for the Super Bowl. These can pretty much be any prop that we like, but we are trying to pick at least one single game parlay. So I'm going to hand it off to Workman here to run this section.
All right. So as most people know, Super Bowl, tons of people like to bet on it. It's probably the most bet on event every year. Props are a pretty popular thing just because you don't really have to know a lot about football to bet a prop. There's a lot of fun things you can just throw stuff on just for entertainment purposes. So as a collective whole, we're going to give out some props that we like, and then also we're going to form a single game parlay for a show prop that we will put out everywhere also. So just to start, I'll throw out my first one. It's something I do every single year. It's my favorite bet, and it ends very quickly. The coin toss, I always bet heads every single year. It's minus 104, just like it always is. I don't know. I just like to have something instantly, and that's one of my favorite ones every year. I always bet heads. How many? Before we get going into this, how many do you have, Carter, total?
As many as we need.
Texas, how many do you have?
I got a bunch.
I picked three. I picked three of them.
Okay. Then we'll just go in the circle. So Carter, give me not a single game parlay one. Give me just a normal one.
Most receiving yards in the game. As of right now, the odds have Kelsey at over 71.5, and he's the highest. You can get plus 260 for him to lead the game in receiving yards.
I like that. Texas, what do you have?
I've got Pacheco with over 67.5 rushing yards at minus 110.
Yeah, I like that one too, especially with the way that the 49ers defense has been against the run. Reese, what one do you have?
First one I've got here is will Pat Mahomes throw a fourth quarter touchdown? And I've got yes here for plus 132.
I like that one also. All right, so I'm just going to go through a few more that I have that are not single game parlay picks, just that I like. So 2-point conversion attempt, yes, plus 128. So at some point in the game, a 2-point conversion will be attempted. The shortest touchdown scored over 1.5 yards is plus 124. Basically, any touchdown that's not from 1 yard out. Results of Brock Purdy's first pass, incomplete or intercepted, plus 194. That's one I like a lot too. Just could see a tipped ball at the line or anything. Then a Brock Purdy to throw first. I picked interception, which is plus 210. The other option was touchdown. This one's a little bit of a higher odds. This is my longest shot that I picked for the game. L'Jarius Sneed to get an interception is plus 600. And that was another one that I liked. Carter, you can run through yours that are not the single game parlay pick.
Okay. Actually, where'd you find that over 1.5 yards rushing for the shortest touchdown? I was trying to find that. Couldn't find it on FanDuel. So
it's in game.
Like
it was in the game prop somewhere.
Okay.
He knows a guy.
Some of the other ones I have. He knows a guy. This is a kind of a different one. Kelsey over 0.5 yards rushing is plus 750. I could see either like a backwards pass or some type of trickery from Andy Reid. Also, his first reception of the game, or Kelsey getting the first reception of the game, is plus 210. So all those Kelsey bets are I kind of like. I think Deebo Samuel, method of his first touchdown, rushing is plus 800. What else do I got? That's probably it for the single game. Oh, Pacheco over 2.5 receptions, minus 162. I kind of like that too.
All right, Texas, what were your others?
I've got Kelsey over 6.5 receiving yards at minus 144, and then a defense special team touchdown plus 270.
And Reese?
I've got two more here. First, both teams have a successful fourth down conversion. I've got yes for plus 290. And then I have, will there be an interception return for a touchdown? I have yes for 520. And that kind of leans into the L'Jarius Sneed prop bet that you have. And I'll dive a little bit further into that later. But those are my other two that are not single game parlay.
All right. So let's go in and build our single game parlay then for the show. So Reese, let's start with you. What do you have as your pick for the single game parlay?
Yeah, so I've gone back and forth on three of these. I'll tell you the two that I'm not going to take. First one was an anytime touchdown scorer, Travis Kelce plus 100. The one that I really like, and I'm thinking about putting some money down, is Rashee Rice getting a first touchdown. That's plus 1,000. I like those odds. The one that I am going to go with for the show is going to be Brock Purdy over 12.5 rushing yards for minus 108.
All right. So that is our first entry into the single game parlay for the team. Brock Purdy over 12.5 rushing yards. Texas, what do you have as your single game parlay entry?
So I was looking for something that I'm pretty much going to guarantee, just so keep the bet moving. And it might not make us a lot of money, but add them all together, it helps out. But the Christian McCaffrey anytime touchdown, I mean, I think that's pretty much not a lock necessarily, but at minus 220, I'll take it to keep the bet going.
I got you. Carter, what is your entry?
So Reese actually stole one of my favorites there, over 12.5. So my second favorite was Deebo Samuel over 16.5 yards rushing, minus 110.
All right. So Deebo over 16.5, right?
Yeah,
It's looking all Niners so far. Let's see if you break the trend here.
I actually am. So mine is an alt line. I've got Rashee Rice over 50 yards receiving. So with those four put in, we are at a collective plus 585. So a $100 bet would win 585. I think we should pick one more. That seems a little. I want a higher odds.
I'm telling you, man, that Rashee Rice first touchdown, man.
Well, we're not putting a first touchdown in this. We'll be done instantly. That's the.
What about
Carter? What were some of your others?
25.5 rushing. Mahomes over 25.5 yards rushing. I think both quarterbacks are going to scramble some here.
I don't know. That one just
the anytime touchdown score for Travis Kelce at plus 100.
Purdy.
I guess we could
do that either.
We could add the anytime Kelce.
Yeah, the anytime Kelce's plus 100.
I mean, the two favorites.
Yeah, I like that. Hold on, let me put it in. All right. So if we add Kelce anytime, oh yeah, that's good. So we're at plus 1310 now. So $100 wins $1,310.
Nice.
I like that one. So to run through the show single game parlay, it will be Christian McCaffrey anytime touchdown, Rashee Rice 50 yards plus, Brock Purdy over 12.5 yards, Deebo Samuel over 16.5 rushing yards, and Travis Kelce anytime score. I like that.
That's not bad. It's a good payout.
Yeah, then that's honestly that should make the game very entertaining because some of those might come down to the end. The Deebo rush is kind of the one that scares me, to be honest, but you never know when he could break one.
Yeah, I have a feeling he's going to be touching the ball a lot.
Outside the box a little bit. Yeah, he should be fully healthy.
I just wonder. I wonder if they put Sneed on Ayuk though. If Deebo is more of a receiving threat in this game, but we'll see.
It just takes one play from him, though.
Yeah.
And all those big games, he's always ran the ball pretty well, it seems.
All right. Well, the single game parlay has been built for us now. So we are good.
So we'll get that posted on socials so everybody can see that. Join in if you want to. But yeah, that'd be a nice little payout if we hit all those. So it's 5 total, right?
Yep, 5.
Very cool.
And then if you wanted to add a money line of your choice, what would that bring that up to? If you added like Chiefs or Niners.
So if you give me just a second. Sorry. So if we do money line, if you were to take the Chiefs with this, the Chiefs to win outright, that's going to put you at plus 2834, which is pretty significant. The 49ers money line will still take you to plus 2395. So still pretty significant.
So just hedge your bets for both.
Yeah, essentially adding in either money lines another $1,000.
I dig it. All right. Well, we'll get those posted on social media so you guys can follow along with that. Hopefully make some money there. All right. Let's jump right into it. It's the last game of the season. Our Super Bowl matchup for 2024 features the NFC 1 seed San Francisco 49ers against the AFC 3 seed Kansas City Chiefs, 6:30 p.m. at Allegiant Stadium in Las Vegas, home of the Raiders, airing on CBS and Paramount Plus. The Kansas City Chiefs get their 4th Super Bowl in 5 years after defeating the Baltimore Ravens 17-10 in the AFC Championship game, while the San Francisco 49ers come in to represent the NFC for the second time in the last 5. A rematch of Super Bowl 54, where the Chiefs beat the Niners 31-20. Both of these teams bring in some familiar faces from that game, from the likes of Pat Mahomes, Travis Kelce, Deebo Samuel, and George Kittle, while providing some new faces in the mix to the likes of Christian McCaffrey, Isaiah Pacheco, and others. San Francisco comes into the matchup favored by 2.5. Give me your pick, what you think the final score is going to be, and your prediction for Super Bowl MVP. Taxis, we'll go to you first.
2 weeks ago I said don't bet against Mahomes and Reed, and I did. And, well, here they are. So I am going to go with Kansas City to win outright, 24-14. And I am going to call for Mahomes as the MVP.
Pretty solid. Carter.
I also said 2 weeks ago, don't bet against Mahomes. Did the same thing. And I think all last week I was on the Chiefs, but the more and more I thought about it, I think I'm leaning 49ers. I hate giving Mahomes any points. I think the 49ers were the better team year-round. Chiefs have been the hotter team going through the playoffs. But I've got 49ers winning 27-21. You might have picked up from some of my bets that I'm big on Deebo this week. If Purdy struggles a little bit and Deebo has a long run, breaks one, gets a couple touchdowns, he's plus 3,300 for MVP. So Deebo Samuel MVP. Niners win 27-21.
Jake? I think it's probably obvious where I'm going here. I'm going the Chiefs 31-24. I just think their defense will be too much. Purdy will have a turnover, and it will actually cost them this week, unlike the previous couple weeks. Mahomes was my MVP also.
All right. We do not have Scott's picks. Unfortunately, he wasn't able to join us. We can push those out on social if he does get those to us. I am taking Kansas City here plus the points. I think this game is going to come down to coaching and defense, and I think the Chiefs have the leverage on both of those. Look for that Chiefs defense to give Brock Purdy some problems. Final score for me is 31-21. For the MVP, I'm going to go with a wild card here. L'Jarius Sneed gets 2 picks in this game and is named Super Bowl MVP for the first defensive player to win the award since Super Bowl 50 when Von Miller won it. That is plus 24,000.
Jesus.
So I'm rolling with that. So that is it, guys. Short episode for us. Kind of expected it was Super Bowl week. We've got the picks in, scores in, MVP predictions, the parlays. We'll get all this stuff pushed out on social. And we will be back with you guys next week for a recap of the Super Bowl and just a general recap of the season. And then we will be taking a break from there until closer to April when the NFL draft happens. It does sound likely that we are probably going to try going live for the first round of the NFL draft. We may be trying to do something similar to where we pull some guys in here and there. If you guys are available to jump in periodically during that first round. We are going to go live. I don't know where, but we're going to go live. We might try to do it together, but we'll see. But that is it for us this week, guys. Short episode. I hope everybody has a good Super Bowl and win some money this week. And that is it for us. So for Jake Workman and the rest of the guys here, this is TNT Tuesday Night Touchdown Podcast NFL Edition Super Bowl week. Cheers, guys.
See ya.